This video is proudly sponsored by Newtype. Tools, accessories, model kits, these guys have it. Hop over to newtypehq.com and use the link below to help this channel out for future builds. Hey, what's going on my dudes and dudettes, and welcome back to another exciting build from the good folks from Bandai, Japan. So, why don't we get started with the 1/100 scale, Master Grade MVFX08 Eclipse Gundam. And without further ado, let's get to it. Welcome back my dudes and dudettes, another unique build from yours truly, Otakubuilder. And if this is your very first time onto this YouTube channel, welcome! So it is literally the last week of 2021 and I have not been able to make any videos for quite some time due to massive shipping delays and parts not coming in when they need to, you know, the list goes on. But fortunate enough for my sponsors, they managed to hit me up and let me know that they had the 1/100 scale Eclipse Gundam in stock, and you know what? I had to buy it. Not only that I love unique color scheme, what this mobile suit is really showing, but this unique ship in the background that is essentially a transforming feature for this mobile suit has a unique design that drastically separates itself from its other Gundam C counterparts. But most importantly, let's talk about the first side of the box art. You get a wonderful front and back side of this mobile suit, while at the same time talking about what we just mentioned earlier in this video, it's its transforming gimmick. And I love this. It's definitely giving you that 00 Gundam Curios vibe, so I'm definitely excited to transform this guy into its flight mode. But wait, it gets even better. If you actually happen to have the weapon accessories for the Strike Gundam, Justice Gundam, or even the Red Frame Astray Kai, you can actually use those backpack units and attach it onto this mobile suit, which is absolutely fantastic, while once again gives you an action base, which is definitely a staple for the Gundam C universe, and tons of pre-sculpted hands. Now, without that, let's take a look inside the box. As always, you are happily greeted with the instruction manual. Give a nice tight shot of this beautiful illustration looking absolutely awesome, while the backside of the instruction manual is very straightforward, keeping the mobile suit in a neutral pose. But what's one thing that's very captivating is its feet. So that's already telling me right off the bat that the inner frame itself is not going to be exactly identical from the Strike Gundam or the Justice Gundam, which is great. As for the first page, you get a nice complete story and lore of how this mobile suit was constructed, while at the very lower right hand bottom you get a nice shot of the graphic novel which the story was derived from. As for the last couple of pages, it gives you a good concept of what you're going to really expect from this mobile suit, and I can tell you right off the bat, this thing is very complex for something this small. Next page is going to give you a brief shot of a dynamic poses, while at the very bottom, a nice complete color guide if you want to choose to do some custom pinning, which is always a handful if you want to do something really cool. And once again, you get a nice transition effect of seeing this mobile suit transforming into its fighter mode, and once again, really showcasing on what this mobile suit can do for dynamic poses when it's on the action base or standing upright. A nice tight shot of the action base and the transforming feature when this mobile suit's fully done, and man, oh man, this thing is complex. But the wonderful thing about this mobile suit, it's not hard to build and it's not too hard to transform, so you'll definitely have a lot of fun building it. But let's talk about the most important part, the runners. Now the runners themselves are going to have an incredible spread of surface detail. Love everything that has like a nice angular sharp look to it. Definitely gives a sense of speed and high velocity movement. I love that design, and at the same time I kind of dig the bunny ears on top of the mobile suit. It's definitely great. Now the colors themselves are going to be kind of mute. You're going to get the classic red for the shoulder blades, you're going to get the classic yellow for the vents and forearm pieces, and at the same time you get the classic Gundam blue. Now this kit does come with tons of unnecessary amount of runners from the Gundam C universe, particularly Freedom Gundam and Justice Gundam, so these runners aren't going to be necessarily needed for this model kit. You can just throw them away and put them aside. This is something that's very common when it comes to Bandai releasing and reproducing the same kits, so it does have a handful of runners that you will need to pull out from it, but as for the main ones, you won't need it. As for the next runners, you're going to get a handful of yellow runners that are going to be for the V-fin, vents around the torso, and a huge selection of red runners around the waist and shoulder blades. Two different tones of grays for the knees and also for the inner frame, followed by the action base, which is always welcoming when it comes to such a complex machine such as this one, followed by sticker decals and sticker decals for the eyes, camera module, and weapon accessories. But wait, the excitement still continues with a handful of clear runners. Now these clear runners are going to be the shields for both forearms, at the same time two beam sabers or two blade sabers. I don't know, either one works for me, but these are kind of really cool. They have a great deal of surface detail, but at the same time it could prove problematic, so hopefully for me I could try something different with a different color scheme. So as always, before I get started building this model kit, I want to take a step back and evaluate which area I want to tackle first. So my original plan was to tackle the arms and the legs first, because I want to get a feel what the inner frame really looks like when I want to do some custom LED wirings, and after close evaluation, there's not a lot of room to really work with, especially when it comes to the shoulder blades. So my original plan was going to put two LEDs around the front part of these sections, but since there's a great deal of parts moving and shifting between one another, it's just not going to work. So I'm going to opt out putting an LED light inside the eyes and inside the main thruster and back of the mobile suit. Hopefully enough, it'll look cool enough to the point where it looks really dynamic looking. Alright, now that I got the legs and arms finally done, I can finally get started and work on the torso area. Now the torso area is going to require a great deal of modifications. I want to put an emphasis on the main engine assembly in the back, but most importantly, I want to make sure that this camera module is glowing like we see in the promotional work. And as you can see here, there is no clear renders for the camera module. The only thing you get here is the sticker decal. So what I'm going to end up doing is actually going to use my pair of snippers and cut this little gray piece out. And then when I cut it out to the right kind of dimensions, I'm going to use that little gray piece as a template and line up to the green runners that I'm using for the weapon accessories. And then when I get the right kind of dimensions just right, I'm going to glue it into place and then hit that area up with a nice flat black. As for the engine assembly in the back, I'm going to be using my tried and true wireframe and then use that as a template in the back and then glue it there to the point to give a nice dynamic look. Now to do this, I'm going to use the actual little Dremel to cut in a little hole so that way I can groove out this section completely with my Dremel tool, so that way I get a nice clean consistent look of it, groove it out with a nice fine tip X-Acto blade so I can get all the excess plastic out, and then once it's consistent to the way I like it, I then can now install the actual grill on there. This is actually going to add a little bit more depth and texture to it to make it look dynamic and actually a lot more cool. All right, my dudes and dudettes, as this video is wrapping up, I want to share with you guys my thoughts and impressions about this build. And man, oh man, this kit was great. I love the starship design. I mean, when I first saw the promotional photos of this, I initially thought it was like a giant like starship that had like the functionality of transforming into a mobile suit, so that's what got me hooked. But unfortunately that wasn't the case. But man, if you can take that concept and work with it, it would be something really, really impressive. But enough about that. The initial design itself is pretty damn impressive. I love the sharp angular wing fins around the head. I love the sharp rich shoulders. I like the fact that this mobile suit screams speed. I love the fact that it has a great deal of articulation. The method of actually painting this mobile suit this time around was drastically different compared to how I paint my mobile suits, right? I went for more of a saturated look than a more like hyper realistic look. And what I mean by that is, instead of using like the classic sea blue or flat black as my pre-shading agent, I would end up using darker blues and then putting a light blue over it, or using a darker red and then putting a nice orange on top of like the exposed surfaces. And even as you can see here with the beam sabers and the beam knives, I end up just going with a nice white primer and then paint around the edges with a very I guess you can say a fluorescent green. So this kit really pushed me to try a unique color scheme that I never would imagine trying, and I had so much fun experimenting on this, man. And speaking of experimentation, I like the fact that this design took risk. You know, it took risk of taking something that is familiar, but then evolving it to a point where it looks really, really impressive. You know, the ship mode is great. The colors work beautifully with one another, and the transforming gimmick didn't have much of an issue with this one compared to what I had with Curios, but it's still fun to build, and I just had a blast. So I guess the big important question is there anything negative to talk about this kit? And there are, and they're very minor. For starters, when you're trying to transform this guy into his flight mode, it's going to require you to shift and move a lot of close impacting pieces. So regardless if you're working with acrylic or lacquer based paint, you're going to have some light paint scraping and chipping. So if you're going to go the route of doing some kind of weathering effect on this guy, definitely a good alternative to hide out those little scuffed up areas. But if not, if you want to keep it in the standard Gundam form, you'll be good. Another area that definitely is proven time after time again is the groin section, and this has definitely been a problem with the 2.0 mobile suits from Freedom Gundam, Justice Gundam, and even Strike Gundam. The peg in between the groin section is super finicky and very, very sensitive, so when you're trying to put this guy in dynamic poses, just take your time when you're trying to position it and you'll be good. If you're too aggressive with it, you will break it. I'm not saying that I had anything breaking on my experience, but countless people that have actually built anything that's related to the Gundam Seed universe had that issue. So I'm just spreading the word that everyone else has spread to me, so just be mindful for that. And is this kit worth the purchase? Absolutely. It was super fun to build, and I know you guys won't have any problems building it. It was super fun. So as this year is coming to a close, I want to just personally say thank you so much for the followers, subscribers, and the followers on Twitter and Instagram, and big thank you to my patrons. My God, you guys helped me out tremendously this year. Big thank you to my sponsors, Newtype HQ, and for all the continuing fans that have supported me in this incredibly stressful and demanding year. I look forward to seeing you guys in 2022, and I want to personally wish you guys a happy and prosperous new year. Take care, and I'll see you dudes and dudettes on the next build.